Donald Trump's New York hush money trial, the first criminal prosecution of a former U.S. president, has begun. A jury was impaneled today. Well, at least folks who might be a part of that jury panel were questioned today to determine whether they would be able to sit as impartial jurors in the trial. This trial involves state claims that he, being Donald Trump, falsified business records connected to a hush money payment in 2016 to keep an adult film actress quiet about an alleged sexual tryst. The jury selection is expected to take about 2 weeks. The court has had to sift through hundreds of potential jurors to find a dozen plus alternates who are confident that they will be able to set aside any feelings that they have about Trump and decide the case solely on the facts and the law. About 50 folks were dismissed today after saying they would not be able to do so. And the Supreme Court today temporarily allowed a ban to take effect in Idaho on gender-affirming treatment for minors, a signal that at least some justices appear comfortable with wading into another front in the culture wars. In siding with state officials who had asked the court to lift a block on the law, the justices were split, with the majority of the conservative justices voting to enforce the ban over the objections of the three liberal justices. And many of the nation's richest people said after the January 6, 2021 attack on the U.S. Capitol that they would never, ever again back former President Donald Trump. Why? Well, they said that he was an insurrectionist. But now these very wealthy people are changing their minds. And they're doing so because their taxes could go up by millions of dollars if President Biden wins re-election and enacts key elements of his second term agenda. Taxpayers with stocks, bonds, and other capital assets worth over $100 million could face a new 25% tax on the increase in the value of their holdings, regardless of whether they've been sold. And these very, very wealthy Americans say paying less taxes is more important to them than anything else in this election. Israel's war cabinet deliberated today how to respond to Iran's unprecedented aerial assault without rankling international allies and squandering an opportunity to build a strategic international alliance against Iran. Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has asked the Israel Defense Forces to provide target options, including saying that Israel is looking at options that would send a message but not cause mass casualties. Voters in about a dozen states could decide the fate of abortion rights in November, with constitutional amendments on the ballot in a pivotal election year, including in several battleground states that will be key to deciding the presidential race and what party controls Congress. Abortion rights advocates have reason to be hopeful. Since the Supreme Court's decision to overturn Roe v. Wade in 2022, every ballot measure that has sought to preserve or expand abortion access has been successful, while those that have sought to restrict abortion access have failed, even in states that skew conservative. And Representative Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez has made her first ever contribution to the campaign arm of House Democrats, a $260,000 donation that is a milestone in the New York Democrats' long and complicated relationship with her own party's political establishment. In an interview, Ms. Ocasio-Cortez said her decision to give to the campaign arm, that is the DCCC, they call it the DCCC, was driven primarily by the dire threat of Republicans staying in power. She feared a Republican-controlled House would not certify a potential re-election of President Biden this fall. And you all remember Tim Scott, the Republican senator from South Carolina? Well, he has launched a weekly series called America's Starting Five with other Black Republicans in Congress in a bid both to make Black conservatives more visible and to reach Black voters. The series, which will discuss politics, race, and the 2024 election, and which Scott hopes to continue at least through the summer, is also a vehicle for him to lean into a skill set that could be an asset for Donald Trump, and that is his perceived ability to expand the party's tent. Some say that Senator Scott recognizes that he can draw people into the party, particularly Black men. And they say this is an effort to highlight that skill set. And finally, in the news today, rejecting an appeal brought by Black Lives Matter activist D. Ray McKesson, the Supreme Court today skipped deciding whether the leader of a demonstration can be sued for an injury to a police officer caused by another protester. McKesson, who was leading a protest in Baton Rouge, Louisiana in July of 2016, following the police killing of a Black man, faces a lawsuit from an officer who was hit in the head by a rock or a piece of concrete thrown by an unidentified person. McKesson was hoping that the Supreme Court would rule that he could not be sued in this particular lawsuit. What the Supreme Court decided to take a pass. Therefore, it's likely that that civil lawsuit against D. Ray McKesson will proceed. This is the news, and this is Areva Martin in real time, and I'm your host, Areva Martin. This is your one-stop destination for today's trending news, expert analysis, and my unfiltered opinions. In this hour, I'm joined by Alan Orr. He is an immigration attorney and the founder of Orr Immigration Law Firm, and he's a regular contributor. So happy to be in conversation with Alan today. And in hour two, you know what we do. That's the hour where we go deep, where we dig behind the headlines and bring you those stories that people are talking about. Well, today we're going to be talking with two experts about aging. Well, that is anti-aging and some new medication that's coming onto the marketplace that could have a remarkable impact on stalling or halting the aging process. And this isn't just about vanity. This isn't just about looking younger than your stated age or your biological age. This is about medication that could slow the process of many degenerative diseases that are associated with the aging process. Dr. Michael Roizen, a good friend who helped us through the COVID years, joining us and giving us all kinds of great health information, is going to be joining me in hour two. He is the author of The Great Age Reboot, Cracking the Longevity Code for a Younger Tomorrow. And he's a special advisor to a pharmaceutical company that released a press release and had a press conference today in Washington, D.C., announcing this new medication that's coming onto the marketplace. Dr. Roizen is one of the nation's leading experts on aging and anti-aging, and he is a fascinating speaker, has done a tremendous amount in his illustrious medical career. And I'm so glad to be joined in conversation with him and Dr. Chris Chapman, who is the co-founder and chairman of Telomere Pharmaceuticals. Now, that's the pharmaceutical company that has made this incredible finding of this medication. So if you are over the age of 40 and you are thinking about getting old and arthritis and all of the things that we hear come along with aging, this is 1 hour you don't want to miss, because Dr. Roizen is just a wealth of knowledge about the aging process and what we can all do, even aside from medications, to make sure we are living our best and healthiest lives. So make sure you stick around for hour two. But before I bring Alan on and we start breaking down today's news, here's what I'm thinking about in real time. So Donald Trump is in the news today because that historic trial started in that Manhattan courthouse today, and he will be there in trial every day, Monday through Thursday, for at least the next 6 to 8 weeks. Donald Trump also has a lot of other business on his mind as he's getting closer to the Republican convention coming up this summer. And a piece of that business has to do with who he's going to pick as his VP. So we know Tim Scott's already out there auditioning. We've heard of other folks, Carrie Lake, that's auditioning, other Republicans, some governor, South Carolina or North Carolina, I think she's the governor of North Dakota, has fixed her teeth. Lots of folks are doing all kinds of extraordinary things to try to get Donald Trump's attention. Well, oftentimes we hear about a short list. Well, in Donald Trump's case, what the Washington Post is reporting is that the list of folks likely to be selected by Donald Trump is growing rather than shrinking. And they say Trump keeps coming up with new names for consideration. But unlike the kinds of things that you would think that a typical presidential nominee would be thinking about in making the critical decision about a VP, the Washington Post has given us some sense about how Donald Trump is thinking about this very important decision. And not surprisingly, he's thinking about it like he did when he was the host of a reality show, The Apprentice. And here are some of the things that are on Donald Trump's list, his wish list for whoever is so lucky to be selected as his VP. Well, I don't know how lucky you're. Got to ask Mike Pence that, because remember he tried to have a mob go and kill his former vice president. But here are some of the characteristics that you must have, and if you don't, you might as well take yourself out of the running. Number one, you must be attractive. You must be telegenic, because remember, this is all about the optics. This is all about TV and your appearance on television, like The Apprentice. So if you're not a pretty person, we can think of some folks on that list who should withdraw their names immediately. Here's another consideration: you cannot be taller than Donald Trump himself, because remember, he's so vain, he doesn't want anyone taller than him. So if you are taller than Donald Trump, again, take your name off the list. You must be committed, absolutely 100, unequivocally committed to upholding the lie that the 2020 election was stolen. Again, if you are a person of morals or you have integrity, this is not the job for you. Well, they also want you, or Donald Trump wants you to be around, but not a whole lot. He wants someone he sees in person, but he doesn't want to see you all that much. And he definitely doesn't want someone who's thirsty for media attention like him, because he doesn't want anyone competing with him for media attention. He wants a winner and that they've won a previous election. So anybody out there that hasn't won their elections, for any kind of state or federal office, you're not the person. Now, he also wants someone who's not going to take over the MAGA movement from him. He would prefer that the Republican Party duke it out for his endorsement in 4 years. So he doesn't want someone who thinks they're going to automatically walk into the role as the nominee in 2028. Now, he says you could be black, you could be a woman, although that's not really all that important to him. He wants someone who can help diffuse the issue of abortion. Doesn't matter if you said you are against abortion in the past, as long as you can lie and convince the American people that you won't enact a federal abortion ban, and you can trick enough people the way Donald Trump is, then you're probably good for him. The kinds of people whose names fit this long list of criteria are people like J.D. Vance, the Ohio senator. In fact, they say Trump likes Vance because he flip flops. He's the ultimate hypocrite. He says one thing on Monday and a different thing on Friday. That makes him a really good candidate for this list. North Dakota Governor Doug Bergman is also on this list. And I said North Dakota, but it's also, I meant South Dakota Governor Kristi Noem. She's the woman that went and got her teeth fixed so she could be, quote unquote, attractive and telegenic. Arkansas Governor Sarah Huckabee Sanders is on this list. Now, I don't know if she fits those first two criteria, but she was a press secretary under Trump, so maybe he thinks she's attractive and telegenic. Beauty's in the eye of the beholder. Also, Katie Britt, you guys remember her. She's the woman that gave that response. Again, is she attractive? Who knows? Tim Scott is on this list for some reason. I don't know if he fits, the criteria for number 1 and 2, but he's on the list. Byron Donalds is on the list. Elise Stefanik, remember that name? Carrie Lake, she's also on the list. Well, we don't know if any of these people on this list will ever be selected as vice president by Donald Trump, but we do know that if you are likely to have been someone he would have selected for The Apprentice, that reality television show, you have a pretty good chance of perhaps being on the list to become the vice president if Donald Trump is fortunate enough, lucky enough, or somehow cheats his way into being president of the United States one more time. When we come forward, more of today's breaking and trending news right here on KBLA Talk 1580. Stay with us.
tried it, and now I get 72 hours of freshness from my pits to my...
Ooh, I love that it's a spray.
Me too. And it comes in sticks and creams too. Go get your secret whole body deodorant.
KBLA Talk 1580. We've got a lot to talk about.
KBLA Talk 1580, connecting you with services and solutions. Stay Housed LA has the resources you need to know your rights and the legal support to back them up. The COVID-19 pandemic has cost people their jobs and livelihoods. This has left an estimated 1/3 of households not being able to make rent and facing losing their homes. This is a fear no one in our community should have to face. You have rights, though, and Stay Housed LA is here to help. Stay Housed LA is a partnership between the County of Los Angeles, the City of Los Angeles, and local community and legal service providers. Together, they provide tenants with the information and support needed to exercise their rights so they can remain safely in their homes. Find out more about your rights by participating in a virtual tenant workshop. Get the legal assistance you need. Find additional resources in Los Angeles County and the City of Los Angeles. Stay connected to Stay Housed LA County for updates. This and more at stayhousedla.org. Stay connected to Stay Housed LA for updates. This and more at stayhousedla.org. That's stayhousedla.org. Or call their hotline at 213-694-0040. We've got your black with a community call to action from KBLA Talk 1580.
We are back, and immigration attorney Alan Orr and a regular contributor to Areva Martin in Real Time is joining me. Welcome back, Alan. Busy news day today. We're going to obviously spend a lot of time talking about Donald Trump, first former president ever to have to sit for a criminal trial. But before we do so, I want to talk about the Supreme Court decision involving DeRay McKesson. The headlines are that the Supreme Court just dealt a massive blow to the right to protest. One of these articles goes on to say the Supreme Court's inaction has effectively abolished the right to mass protest across 3 states, allowing a lower court's ruling to seemingly infringe upon the constitutional rights that protesters have under the First Amendment. Help us understand what's at stake in this case and why the Supreme Court's inaction is so detrimental to protesters.
Right. So first, let's start with the big news of the day that Clarence Thomas was not on the court today. He's missing, and nobody knows why. So I think that's important to sort of think about as we roll into this election and replacing Supreme Court justices or what's happening with the Supreme Court justice. Generally, there's an explanation, and one hasn't been given. The issue with this case isn't that this is a death kiss. It's just that they didn't stop it now. So these laws in these various states can go into effect. And that's super important today when in the San Francisco bridge, there was a protest today for Palestine stopping traffic in both directions. Although that's not one of the states that actually enact that law. What it means are these states that do have these laws, that they can go into effect, and that the First Amendment will not be defense of these laws. So full disclosure, Del Rey's he's a friend of mine. I know him personally. And I think that, his argument was strong to go to the Supreme Court to say why we've been having this conversation, because the incidents that occurred during the time of the protest were not linked to me directly. I was not the causal effect. I was not linked to them. These things happened because there was outrage about what was going on around Black Lives Matter, not because I was protesting the injustice that was happening. So but the big news for me is that it goes back to the trial court, and these arguments can be made at the trial court to be sorted out through the case. We just have to wait for it. And that's the problem. Until it's sorted out at the trial level, then we won't know what the Supreme Court will be ruling on later on. So this isn't the end of it, but it does allow for these states to sort of have these rules in effect right now.
Yeah, I am not surprised by what the Supreme Court did with regards to this case. It is potentially, devastating to protesters for this lawsuit if it gets back to the trial court and this case is able to proceed. This matter, again, dates back to a protest that happened in 2016. So we're talking about almost 8 years ago, approximately 8 years ago. Be interesting to see how DeRay McKesson makes out in this case. Let's talk about, I opened the show, Alan, talking about the laundry list of things that Donald Trump is considering when he looks at who he wants to choose for a running mate. One of the big issues for him is always about looks. It's always about how someone presents on the camera, how attractive you are, how photogenic. And what's so interesting is he wants you to be attractive, but not too attractive. He wants you to be a good looking person, but not too tall, because by definition, he doesn't want anyone that's going to overshadow him. So what about Tim Scott? Tim Scott is out here with a new podcast, a new series called America's Starting Five. These are Black Republicans say they're going after the Black male vote. They're going to show Donald Trump, or Tim Scott wants to show Donald Trump, that he can expand the party, thinking that may make him a more likely pick for VP. Well, let's just ask the question: does Tim Scott check all the boxes on that list that I read? And how successful do you think he's going to be in trying to bring in more Black men in the Republican Party, or just Black men that will vote for Donald Trump?
Yeah, I think the real answer is not a chance, right? Not a chance, not a chance, not a face, not a reality. Don't think of it that way. He just found a wife after all of this time, right? Go marry her and think of whatever you can think of in that happiness that you'll find there. He is not photogenic. He is not camera ready. He does not, instill people. He had one event in which he was very preacher in a very Black Southern style that motivated people at some level, but there were no Black people there. The only person that was there was his mom and his nephew. So, and no one else from the Republican Party, when you think about when I say no one was there. So I don't find him to be enchanting. I don't find the antics of having, maybe he, like Marsha Blackburn, is looking for that television channel release after being in the Senate, right? To sort of do these shows. So this, 5-man talking head, Black men are coming my way fiction that they have going on. I wonder if it will have any ratings. I wonder how long it will actually last. I wonder what they will talk about in the show after the first show, where they say Black people are voting for me, and everything from Chick-fil-A to everything else is staged and paid for by us to make sure Black people show up. So I don't really think they have a lot to talk about. No one has ever found him interesting. He worked on one bill, and when the bill got close to being passed, he turned his back on his co-partner on that bill. I can't think of one thing he had one good story about how he too was impacted as a Black man in Congress and misrecognized. So there was a moment when you just thought there was a glimpse of humanity coming out of him. But other than that, I can't think of a single thing he's done, and would not miss him tomorrow if he goes the way of Herschel Walker.
It's kind of funny that you brought that up, Alan, because there was this moment when Tim Scott was seemingly going to work with Karen Bass when she was in Congress on the George Floyd and Policing Act. After George Floyd's murder, it seemed like, Tim Scott had some empathy for the Floyd family and for other Black unarmed men who were shot and killed by police. But that didn't last very long. And as you said, he was, shortly thereafter being as conservative as he has always been, as he has, been successful in writing his conservatism into the U.S. Senate. So you're right. We'll be watching if there's anything to watch. It may not be any there, but obviously all these folks are auditioning. Kristi Noem, the spokesperson for Trump, says they don't know if Trump wants to get involved with her because of Teethgate. This woman went and had her teeth fixed so she could appear more telegenic. It's just always shocking to me what these very successful grown people will do to try to get the attention of Donald Trump. One of the issues is going to be in this abortion.
Right? You like that for her. I think the answer for this is that he has free talking heads, and that's why he's keeping all these people in the running, so they can all keep bowing at him and help make this fiction that people are behind him. If he eliminates someone before too soon.
No, absolutely. We even saw Mitt Romney back in the day go and kiss the ring. So we know even people who you wouldn't expect to try to kiss up to Donald Trump will do so if they think there's something in it for them, and that something is power. But the abortion issue continues to be a big issue, Alan, for Republicans. And Donald Trump, one of the reports said he's also looking for someone who can convincingly lie to the public and say that they want the issue of abortions to be handled by the states, that they're not going to support a federal ban, because that's where Donald Trump, at least in this moment, has landed. And they say J.D. Vance makes himself an attractive candidate because he has lied on so many issues and has flip-flopped on so many issues. Where do you think, Republican women are clearly split on this? One of the articles in the paper today says that Republicans who oppose abortion are even concerned about how far some of these courts are going, like the Arizona court reviving the 1864 law and saying that Republicans are in big trouble of losing even Republican women on this issue of abortion.
Right. So I'm a different type of Democrat now. I don't really care about Republican women. I care about the non-voters and the independents. They're the people who are going to swing the elections, because many of the Republican women are of the same kind of the Republican men that have found their hope in Donald Trump. And there's nothing you can say to them today that would persuade them to do something differently. I mean, just today, you had some woman in New York City get removed from the jury pool for her confidence in Donald Trump. Sort of tells you where we are in this moment, where there are women who are willing to say, oh my God, he might have raped someone. He has these defamation cases. He has these suits. He's done all this stuff, but oh yeah, I'll pick him. So the debate should not be there. And the answer should be, there are more non-voters than there are voters. And if those people show up, if those women are activated, if the people who are related to those women are activated, then we may change some things. And it's great to get some Republican women, but I don't think they should be the focus.
No, absolutely. And I'm glad you mentioned what happened in the jury in that Manhattan courtroom today, because when we come forward, of course, we've got to talk about the historic nature of today, having a former sitting president standing trial on criminal charges that could land him literally in jail. 34 counts of falsifying business records. Stay with us. KBLA Talk 1580.
The right time. More of Areva Martin in real time when we come forward.
I'm Trey Thomas. Here's the latest on the Black Information Network. Anti-Israel protests are hitting cities across the U.S. today. Demonstrators clashed with police on New York's Brooklyn Bridge. Meanwhile, on the West Coast, they completely blocked southbound traffic on the Golden Gate Bridge. The first set of potential jurors in former President Trump's criminal trial in New York are being sworn. The judge told them some of them will be selected as the jury selection process continues. Jury selection could take up to 2 weeks. A cell phone video shows a white officer in Louisiana using an illegal chokehold on an unarmed black man. That's the latest. I'm Trey Thomas on your home for 24/7 news, the Black Information Network, and BINnews.com.
Bad crash in Pasadena, 210 freeway eastbound, right there at the 134. The left lane is blocked. Traffic is slow from Lincoln. Also in Anaheim, stop and go traffic, 91 eastbound between 57 and Gypsum Canyon. Also some problems in the valley. It's going to be Sylmar as you head northbound on the 5 past Roxford Street. Car fire in the right lane. It's slow back from the 118.
Save big during Springfest at Lowe's. Get up to 35% off, plus save an extra $150 on every $1,500 you spend on select major appliances. Valid through 4/17. Appliance savings vary based on purchase amount. Exclusions apply. See Lowe's.com for more details.
This is the KBLA Sports Minute with Ray Richardson.
Something for Lakers fans to think about. If the Lakers beat New Orleans tomorrow night, they will make the playoffs and earn the number 7 seed. That means the Lakers will play the defending champion Denver Nuggets in the first round of the playoffs. The Nuggets are the number 2 seed. Today is Jackie Robinson Day in Major League Baseball. On this day in 1947, April 15th, Robinson made his debut with the Brooklyn Dodgers to break Major League Baseball's color barrier. As a tribute to Robinson, every player will wear Jackie's number 42 in today's games. In 2023, only 6.2% of Major League players were black. The 2024 numbers have yet to be released. The Dodgers had 3 black players, outfielders Jason Hayward and Taylor Trammell, and shortstop Mookie Betts. Outfielder Aaron Hicks is the Angels' only black player. No debates, no speculation, just the info you need. That's your KBLA Sports Minute. I'm Ray Richardson. More news, opinions, and conversation when we come forward on KBLA Talk 1580.
Yeah, y'all, come on. Pick up the drum.
At KBLA Talk 1580, we fight the power every day.
Yeah,
gotta give us what we want. Gotta give us what we need.
Hey.
I listen to KBLA and I love the commercials. I know what the commercials mean. I also, if I'm looking and trying to figure something out, I need something to talk to me that might hit me. And it happens on TV because, every time they show a sporting event, they got the pharmaceutical companies back to back telling people how to fix the sickness on the same stuff that they sell them. So we get it.
Yep, we get it too, Chuck D. And that's why at KBLA Talk 1580, We don't back down.
Drop it. Our freedom of speech is freedom of death. We got to fight the powers that be. Fight the power. Fight the power.
These statements have not been evaluated by the Food and Drug Administration. This product is not intended to diagnose, treat, cure, or prevent any disease.
What's up? I'm tired of feeling so bloated. That used to be me. Then I got this. Align Bloating Relief plus food digestion. A probiotic, right? Yeah, it works naturally with your gut to help soothe occasional bloating and gas. Plus, it has vitamin B12 to aid digestion by helping convert food to cellular energy. 2 benefits, 1 capsule.
Align Bloating Relief plus food digestion from the #1 doctor-recommended probiotic brand. Learn more at alignprobiotics.com.
Sometimes I struggle to get to sleep. My body stopped for the day, but my mind is still running. So I take ZQuil.
ZQuil, the world's #1 sleep aid brand, has a range of non-habit-forming products to fit you and your family's needs. Invest in a great night's sleep for the best you tomorrow.
I'm awake and ready to take on anything.
Better days start with ZQuil nights. Explore our products at ZQuil.com. Use as directed. Keep out of reach of children.
You're listening to KBLA Talk 1580, where climate is king. Climate is king. KBLA Talk 1580. We've got a lot to talk about.
KBLA Talk 1580 reminding you that we keep us safe. Pro Football Hall of Famer and urban peace pioneer Jim Brown believed in just that. So he founded the Amera I Can Foundation for Social Change in 1988, focusing on at-risk and high-risk youth in underserved schools and juvenile detention facilities, as well as adult incarceration and reentry initiatives. The core of the Amera I Can program is its 15-chapter life skills curriculum. Mastery of these skills allows individuals to meet their academic potential, conform their behavior to acceptable societal standards, and improve the quality of their lives by equipping them with what they need to confidently and successfully contribute to society. Today, the foundation is led by its president, Monique Brown, who has been actively involved in the organization for more than 25 years. The Amera I Can Foundation continues its work in memory of its founder, actor, philanthropist, and NFL legend Jim Brown. To get involved or make a donation, please visit AmeriICanCommunity.partners. That's AmeriICanCommunity.partners. This is a community call to action from KBLA Talk 1580.
We are back, and in this hour, we are breaking down today's trending and breaking news with Alan Orr, immigration attorney extraordinaire. And in hour 2, we're going to be talking about the anti-aging process and a new medication that's coming on the marketplace that could slow down the aging process, that could be really beneficial to those folks who have certain medical conditions associated with aging, such as degenerative diseases, osteoarthritis, even folks who suffer certain symptoms related to taking or receiving chemotherapy. So make sure you stick around for hour 2 to learn how you can ensure that you grow old gracefully and healthily. Alan, okay, biggest news today obviously is Donald Trump stepping foot in that Manhattan courtroom and having to sit as a criminal defendant in the first ever trial of a former president. Lots of things to take away from today. One thing that's could be different than a lot of other states. New York has a law that allows defendants to be present during sidebar questioning of jurors. The law assumes that defendants should have an opportunity to judge the credibility of witnesses, look at their facial expression, listen to their tone of voice. So that would not be a problem in most cases, but in the case of Donald Trump, wherever Donald Trump goes, so does the Secret Service. So having Trump get so physically close to prospective jurors and deeply involved in the selection process creates some issue that, again, wouldn't be the case if you had a normal being, someone that didn't travel with the Secret Service. What other observations did you make of the trial today that may be unusual from your typical criminal trial?
Well, I mean, so here is where I land in this, and I just tweeted about this as well, that, this is the best off-Broadway show we have for free this season because everything in it is pure theater. I went to law school long enough to remember that we didn't talk about who appointed a judge. We would talk about what theory the judge would follow. We didn't have questions. about the jurors in such a sense that, oh my God, they're so, they're beholden to someone. The questions were, is there something to remove them from because they were either related to the crime in the crime instance, family member, something of that nature. And so this becomes stage theater of American law at the state level with all of these characters going around. And today, the concept that in the moment, the first day, the hottest moment after walking in hot and walking out hot, that the former president was sleeping in the courtroom, right? Which is the level of disrespect. I mean, if people don't know that, that is the level of disrespect to the judge, the jurors, and the seriousness of the complexities of that you're in there to see if you were going to jail. So that's not the moment to sleep, right? I mean,
yeah, let's just stop right there, Alan, because let's just put this in perspective.
Sure.
If you are a criminal defense attorney, you have given your client all kinds of admonition. You've warned them, you've prepped them, and you're telling them, walk in there, be respectful, don't make faces, don't roll your eyes, don't engage in any conduct that could be remotely disrespectful. Respect the process. And there's nothing more disrespectful than someone falling asleep. I mean, nothing says I don't care more than starting to snooze while a proceeding is going on. But that's not unusual because Donald Trump has gotten away with so many things no other criminal defendant would get away with, like attacking the judge's daughter, attacking the prosecutor, attacking witnesses and jurors. So holding him accountable in the way that you and I were taught defendants are held accountable in criminal trials, all those rules just go out the window in the case of Donald Trump.
Well, that case will be, I guess, what is it, next Wednesday? They're going to have a hearing on what he did this weekend, which would not happen for anyone in our situation. I mean, the other thing that here's more of the comedy that is sort of happening of this off-Broadway show. The president comes in and he says, "Can I have the day off for my kid's graduation from high school?" I mean, how many times have you actually seen him in a picture with Barron in which Melania is not there at some other school event? I mean, the kid must have had a ton of, I didn't even know he was a senior. He must have had a ton of school events, and I haven't seen him at any of them, right? When you had President Obama, he was at the girls playing basketball. He was at the girls' birthday parties. Find me a single picture of him doing any of those things. It's sort of funny. Then he says, "Oh, I need to be in the Supreme Court," right? Never been there before, never wasn't in court before. Now he's had all these made up dates and things that he needs to do. And even particularly, he's sort of arguing that he needs to campaign. But this is where I really ask the media to remember what they did before. He has had wall-to-wall coverage today. It has been nothing but Trump, nothing about Biden not being there, nothing about it being 243 years of history without having a president in this situation ever, right? It's just been, can he get a fair trial in Manhattan? That's something else the media, I think, is really weird. In our jurisprudence system, if you do a crime in an area, you are held accountable in the area for which you did the crime. And if you did the crime and they're going to punish you for the crime based on that area, then yeah, that's accountability. That is a fair trial, right? That's the jury of your peers from the jurisdiction from which you're in. There are some cases in which there may be biases that you can outlay, but it can't be political biases to say you might want to move a case for certain reasons. But this ain't one of them. So the concept that New York is full of individuals who may be more liberal than Donald Trump, and to say he can't get a fair trial there, well, he should have done the crime there. I mean, as a prosecutor, I would say, if you don't want to have that sort of scrutiny, then don't do the crime in that jurisdiction. Right?
Well, the other thing, Alan, that the court shot down, both the appellate court and trial court, is the notion that there's so much publicity, right, in New York that he couldn't get a fair trial. And thankfully, the prosecutors reminded the judge, well, so much of the publicity is generated by Donald Trump himself. Right. So when the publicity is positive towards him, or he thinks it's positive, then he wants it. But in this case, he wanted to come and suggest that all of the publicity was somehow going to be negative and prevent him from finding, or prevent his legal team from selecting jurors that would be impartial. But the reality is that the standard isn't, have you seen any media? People get that wrong. Right. That's not the standard. The standard is, despite what you may have seen, can you put aside any of your personal beliefs or feelings and just follow the facts that are presented in the case and follow the law that's read to you by the judge? Because in this 24/7 news media frenzied world that we live in, it's almost impossible for someone not to have heard some news about Donald Trump. Now, not everyone's, tuned in to every trial that he's been a part of, but he has become one of the most widely known household names. I can't even imagine anyone's name as, known as widely as his. So it's not going to be any jurisdiction, whether you go to Hawaii or Florida or Texas, you're going to run into that same issue. I want to talk, though, about this. Morning was spent, Alan, arguing about the salacious details of Trump's history with women. We know that this case in particular, Trump and his lawyers have been really, really fighting, really trying to delay, and as you just said, engaging in more delayed tactics with this graduation, Supreme Court hearing, etc. But the trial is on now, and this judge is not going to let him delay it, in any unreasonable way. But what do you make of the lawyers who are on Trump's team, and any defense team would probably do this, fighting really, really hard to keep out the salacious details of his affairs?
Yeah, I mean, this is a document case, and I think that it adds to the story. And so my understanding is a ruling that with regards to the Access Hollywood, they wouldn't have the tape. You would just have the transcript to sort of not prejudice the jurors anymore. So they're allowing some stuff in and some stuff not in. I mean, is it embarrassing to the president, to the former president? Well, is it sitting in the room embarrassing? Is it prejudicial? Probative? I don't, if Stormy Daniels takes the stand and they ask her about it, she's going to say what happened, right? Or whoever else is going to say what happened in those moments. So he will be reduced to that salacious moment that he tried to reduce Hillary Clinton to by having Bill Clinton's supposed mistresses sit in front of her. And I think that is not good for America, because once again, that becomes more of a show of what's sort of happening. What is rich in all of this to me is that it's April 15th. It's tax day, which is a documental thing that we do. And he's on trial in New York for a document crime for things that he hardly ever did, ever filed taxes, right? So it's sort of catching up to him in the same sort of paper chase way of saying, and that's the really thing that I think Alvin Bragg has done correctly, right? It's a paper trial. We have the documents to show you. The testimony will back up the documents, but as long as they're able to get the documents in, authenticate the documents, this happened. And so the jury's going to have to deal on that factual matter. Now, will that get it from the New York misdemeanor to the felony charge? Okay, I see that's a legal leap, but I think with John Edwards in our recent memory and what happened to him when we found out he was having an affair in his political career and how it quickly went downhill, it's not so hard to make that same leap in New York with regards to President Trump and just, all the catch and kills, because it wasn't just one, right? If it were just one, then that would be something else. The other thing that I think is interesting is that everybody around him is going to jail for this except for him. Where does that happen at?
No caller.
Yeah, no, that's an excellent point. It's interesting that everyone else around him has faced some consequences. We know that the prosecution, Al, they were arguing they wanted to bring in the Access Hollywood tape and the comments that were made on that tape. The Trump team won that battle with the court this morning. The court said, well, no, that's way too prejudicial. It's based on a lot of gossip and rumor, and wouldn't allow the prosecution to bring that evidence in. Now, the prosecutors say, look, we want to bring this in to show that he was really, really obsessed with addressing these allegations about him being a womanizer, and that he was worried, and it would explain why Trump wanted so dearly on the eve of the 2016 election to cover up his alleged encounter with Stormy Daniels. It's going to be interesting how the court will allow the lawyers to, I would say, thread the needle on this issue, because you can't not talk about his sexual encounter with Stormy Daniels. She's going to be a witness for the prosecution. Right. That's why she is there. But so far today, Trump's team won on the issue of the Access Hollywood tape. But we know there are other salacious allegations out there about him and his sex life. We'll see if any of those make their way into the trial. When we come forward, we'll talk about Trump's behavior. You already said he was sleeping today. We know he has a history of striking out and really railing against our entire judicial system. What's going to happen in this case when he does that? Because we know he is going to do it. Stay with us. KBLA Talk 1580. We are back, and Al, you did mention that there was reports that Trump was snoozing in court today. It looks like his attorneys, Todd Blanche and Emil Bove, refilled his drink, his water, presumably, and gave each other a very awkward look at the defense table as Trump was indeed nodding off and appearing to be very uninterested and bored at times. And this is just day one. So if this is his demeanor on day one, what do you expect for the next 6 to 8 weeks? Because trials are very long and they are a test of endurance.
Yeah, I expect drama. I expect faces, right? He's historically known for his faces. And I don't know. Well, we'll see. The judge read him the riot act at the very beginning of the day about disrupting the courtroom and the trial. So let's see if that sticks. And maybe what happens next Wednesday, let's see if that sticks with regards to his Truth Social, to see if that changes his demeanor. But also, let's see how it plays out in public, right? Because part of what you illustrate today is that he has a public persona. And his whole public persona is sharp and bright and attentive. And falling asleep in a courtroom on the first day of a major trial isn't any of those things, right? That's everything that he had accused Joe of being, Sleepy Joe, and all these other sort of things. So let's see, there are pills that he can take to sort of up his caffeine level maybe and to be a little bit more hype during that. But I don't really expect much of him going in and going out other than saying, this is unfair to me. This is unfair to me, right? That's going to be his line while all this goes on, and that it's not fair for me to run this election. And so I think it's important that people are able to counter that and say, this did not happen to you. You didn't fall into the courtroom. You committed the crime. I think that's something that I often have to express to a lot of people is that, the crime didn't happen to you unless you're the victim. You committed the crime. So if you're in this situation, it's one that you selected for yourself, and you need to put on your adult pants and live through it because this is what you chose. This could have happened earlier, and it could have happened.
Well, we know Donald Trump is famous for. Well, we know, Alan, he's famous for being the victim when he thinks it's to his advantage. And of course, He wants to convince his followers that he's being persecuted. He tweeted out on his social or posted on social media that this trial wasn't just for him. This was about defending the rights of 350 million Americans. So he wants the entire country to feel like he is, taking a bullet for us. And that as he's being persecuted, so are we. But it's very clear that majority of people can see through that, and they recognize that this is, as you said, a crime committed by one individual and one individual who's being held accountable. Before we run out of time, I do want to ask you about these ultra wealthy people, Alan. Right after January 6th, we saw a lot of folks coming out denouncing Donald Trump, saying they wouldn't vote for him. Belief that his campaign, or his not campaign, but his ability to ever run for office again was pretty much over because he had done the ultimate betrayal to our country by trying to overthrow a legitimate election. Now, a lot of those folks are changing their tunes, and they're now focused more on Biden's 2025 economic plan that will result in increases in taxes for those folks who make over $400,000 a year, and particularly those folks who have, make their money through capital gains and other means, not just even through income. This could be a big boost for Donald Trump because we know he's short on cash. We know those small donors have dried up, or at least they have substantially reduced the amount that they are giving. So if a bunch of billionaires, decide that, those that supported DeSantis, those that supported other Republican candidates now decide, we'll overlook that overturning the election because we're more concerned about keeping our taxes low. Might they start infusing cash into his campaign in a way that could be beneficial to him?
Well, for me, cash is never equal votes. Jamie Harrison, Stacey Abrams, Clinton, right? A lot of money. It takes a lot more than just that money to do that. And, as the famous rapper once said, money over everything. And so that's why that small group of people are saying they want to protect their dollars. But that's just a small group of people. Remember that. That's a small network. The wealthy in this country are the people who are making $400,000 a year, is not the bulk of the American people. And if they go against the American people and they throw their money in the same hole that Mike Lindell did from My Pillow and the former mayor of New York, right? Everybody who touches him winds up losing their fortune. So if they want to throw it in that hole, then Godspeed to them. I wish them the best. But with these abortion issues on the ballot and these gun issues on the ballot, and just truth being on the ballot, and having an understanding that you don't want your president or someone even running for president to have been indicted. That is beyond the pale. In immigration law, if you're arrested for a crime, it could lead to your deportation, even if you're not found guilty of that crime.
Yeah, no, it's unbelievable. I had someone ask me the other night, how was this going to help his campaign? And I just think we have to keep pushing back on any narrative that Americans want a man or woman to be the president of the United States that has 91 criminal charges filed against them and that is sitting in a courtroom facing criminal charges. That is not what we want our president to be, or what we want the president
to be. One more thing, and he's not a successful business person. Stop selling the drama. He is not successful. He broke Atlantic City. He didn't have the buildings. He wasn't paying taxes. He didn't have the permits. His name is licensed to everything. He didn't have $1 billion. He couldn't pay the court fees. So he's not a successful business person ever. So that even that concept goes away from me. And the only reason his first 2 years were really good was because he adopted a successful economy from Obama.
Yeah, so important that we continue to state that. So funny, I was at an event with Vice President Kamala Harris on Friday, and the STEMI checks that the Biden administration passed out, those $1,400 checks, Biden it was suggested to him that he put his name on it. And he said, no, I'm just doing my job. I'm not going to grandstand like Donald Trump, who put his name on the first stimulus checks. But it is important that folks remember, whether the president's name is on the check or not, that who has done the work for the American people, which is why I'm encouraged, and I'm sure you are too, Alan, to see AOC, of all people, who's had a very fraught relationship with the DCCC, making such a large contribution, saying, I want to put my money in the game to help the DCCC defeat the Republicans.
We grow, right?
Yeah, no, that's pretty big for the squad. I mean, she has been so outspoken against the established Democrats.
I mean, I think a lot of the squad has changed, but I think people mature in their own way. And you come in, I mean, I like the energy that they came in with, and they have pointed out a lot of issues. But we're a big tent, and it's important to have people who will challenge us in different ways.
No, absolutely. But it's also important to realize, keep your eye on the ball, keep your eye on the big picture. And the big picture here is we cannot have a Republican-led Congress and expect to get anything done. And we didn't get a chance to talk about it, but let's give Biden a big kudos for that additional $7 billion plus dollars of student loan debt that was relieved. And one thing I hope the Democrats do a good job of is marketing it and letting folks know that some of the folks who are getting this relief, these are people whose loans tripled because of the interest rate. Right. So they may have had a $50,000 loan. They've been paying on it 15, 20 years, and now they're paying like $100,000 or more. So for all those folks who are complaining about it, i.e. Republicans who had PPP loans relieved, Republicans who've gotten all kinds of stimulus from the U.S. government, it's important to note that these aren't lazy people that don't want to pay their obligations. These are people who have been paying for years on these loans, but the loans were onerous to begin with, and they were really ripoffs.
And if you're Republican and you got that check, send it back. If you don't want it, send it back.
No, absolutely. We are out of time, Alan. Thank you so much. Always a pleasure to be in conversation with you. Make sure you stick around for hour 2. What you need to know about aging that could make your life a lot healthier. Stay with us. KBLA Talk 1580.